So I have Candice here. Their family was affected by the Return to Nature funeral home in Penrose, Colorado. Her brother passed away. The funeral directors picked him up, and they never received his remains back. So hi, Candice. Thank you so much.
Hi, Lauren.
For joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I know I have questions, but before we get into that, I really wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your brother, how old he was and how he died?
So my brother, Philip Power, he was born May 11th of 1974. I would have to do the math quickly in my head. I just know he's older than me. It's bad. I have 7 brothers and sisters.
Oh
So
my goodness.
to keep up with birthdays gets a little
I bet that
tedious.
gets a little hard.
He passed away August 5th of 2023. Um, it was an unaccompanied death. So in Colorado medical terminology, an unaccompanied death means he wasn't in a facility, he wasn't in a hospital. There was no medical staff attending to him as he passed away. So he literally just went into his room, turned on his TV, sat down on his bed, laid back, and passed away.
Oh,
So we did have the coroner perform an autopsy just to figure out what happened. And it turns out that he had some heart issues or artery issues that we were unaware of. He was unaware of. And that's what led to his passing. So it was just natural causes, essentially. Um, and then my mom and I have been discussing with his other biological siblings, well, what are we going to do? What's this process? Because we're from Kentucky, and his biological mother, and I guess I should back up, he's my adoptive brother. So his biological mother had passed away years ago, and we have a plot next to her that that's where he wanted to be laid to rest. With getting him to Kentucky, there's a lot of legality involved, as I'm sure you're aware.
oh yes.
There's a whole process. They must be embalmed. They must be fully treated. Then it's roughly around $15,000 to $20,000 just to transport them
Really?
to the state. Yeah, so
No
it's
way.
about. I think they said it was like roughly $12,000 for the flight because he has to be
That has got to be the most expensive flight I've ever heard of
stored
for shipping.
properly, all of that. And then he would just be essentially loaded where they load the luggage, but he would be the first thing that they bring on off of the plane. Um, and they would keep people on the plane while they're taking him off, is the way it was explained. So, and speaking with his siblings, and it wasn't really that we couldn't afford that. I certainly could have afforded that, and I was willing to pay that for both my mom and his siblings and things. But was some previous things that his siblings were dealing with that was going to delay the process, and so it kind of came down to the coroners can't hold him forever. Like we have to make a decision on what
Yes.
we're doing with him. So we just decided to go the cremation route. And then we were going to take his ashes to Kentucky and have a memorial service or a celebration of life, and then be able to bury his urn in the plot next to his mother.
Wow.
Um,
Yep.
so, yeah,
That
that's
that
the
makes
way
more
that
sense.
whole
Yeah.
process kicked off.
Yeah. Okay. So
Mhm.
why did you select the Return to Nature funeral home?
So, in researching funeral homes or all the different funeral homes in Colorado Springs and the Penrose area, um, we didn't need any type of services. We didn't need to use their facility for anything. We just essentially needed kind of a go between for the cremation and to be able to get him to Kentucky. So my mom, had looked at Return to Nature. Website looked fine. There were no red flags.
I actually just
Even
Googled them and they still have
mm,
their website's still up and they have a bunch of 5-star reviews. So if I were you
yeah,
guys and I was looking for a funeral home, I would have thought that those were some green flags, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and it kind of stood out to us because it's like, what's a green, what's green burial? That's something we had, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't even hear of water cremation till I had watched one of your TikToks uh, a while back. You were the second person I ever started following on TikTok. So
Am I?
um,
I'm honored. Thank
I
you.
have literally watched every one of your videos multiple times. I've actually showed people, you have to follow her. I'm trying to get you followers. Um, but yeah, so it was kind of like, oh, well, that's new. That's innovative. They've got all these great reviews. So this is a good funeral home to go with. So my mom reached out to them and just kicked off the process. And so they picked him up from the coroner somewhere between August 28th and September 1st. I cannot get the real date. Like nobody will give me that date as to when he was actually picked up. But
That's
we know
weird.
that he was picked up by John Halford because the coroner did confirm that with me while I was on the phone with the FBI because the coroner was standing right beside of her. So she was just kind of doing the go between answering questions for me. But yeah, so they picked him up. We paid the invoice. They sent the invoice on the 26th. We paid it in full on the 27th. So, I mean, it was a very quick, once they started sending that invoice, it was a very quick process from invoice sent, paid,
Done.
body picked up,
Yep.
done.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so did you ever talk to him or his wife? Did they talk to you on the phone? Did they seem like nice people? Or
They talked to my mother, and my mother only dealt with Carrie. She never actually talked to John, saw John. We never got to go to the facility. They kept us at bay by phone calls and emails. So
oh,
I have a lot of emails, and she was only in communication with my mother. I will, be fully transparent. I did not speak with her because my mother was taking care of that, and then I was just there for my mom, assisting with anything else that she needed, or really just emotional support for her because she was just devastated.
yes.
She's the one that found him when he passed away. So
Oh,
um, I remember my mom told me I knew something was wrong because he didn't bring the dogs down that morning.
oh.
So when she knew he wasn't up by 10 o'clock, there was
She
a problem.
she knew something
Um,
was up. She knew.
yeah. hmm
She knew.
And even when they did the autopsy, they found no alcohol, no medication, no prescriptions, nothing. Even the medication he was prescribed was not in his system. So, I mean, it was a full natural
So it sounds like he just
path.
went to sleep and he didn't wake up.
Exactly what happened.
Sounds like it was pretty peaceful.
hmm I hope there
I
was no
hope
pain
it
for
was
him.
too. So we had talked a few months ago, and a few months ago you had said that the FBI was looking for your brother, but
hmm
they had not found him yet. Have they found him? Do they have any inkling on where he is yet?
No, um, I have some voicemails in with the FBI right now. I'm waiting for them to call me back. So no, they had found, or initially, what they were saying in the news was it was 115 bodies. Then it went up to 189, and then there was 190.
Dang.
So there's that one there that came in out of the blue. But what I was told mid February was that 170 of the 190 had been positively identified. Some have already been, I don't use the word assessed, handled with the utmost care and laid to rest, or many of them were cremated, had to be cremated. So yeah, this is going to blow your mind. There's 948 people missing.
What? 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 Whoa. How?
Mm-hmm.
How? Oh my gosh. You weren't
So
kidding.
it's not
Yeah,
just my brother.
that just blew my mind. I have
Yeah.
not heard that number yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's coming from
I have chills
places you
all over
probably
my
won't know.
body. I am broke out in chills right now. That is absolutely heartbreaking. Over
Mhm.
900 now. How, and did they tell you how they figured that out?
There's an entire year missing in the timeline. So out
Oh,
of the 190, they had found decedents from 2019 in that 190 that were in the building. Um, so they were from 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023.
I,
No decedents from 2021, even though they had conducted quite a bit of business in that year.
oh no.
So, and then there's some from, the other years missing as well. But um, yeah, so there's an entire year in the timeline just completely gone.
So, this is off script, but I know we talked about this before, but I want to talk about this just really quickly, really briefly together,
Yeah.
because I get asked when people just can't fathom. I can't even fathom right now. It went from just under 200 people to now there's over 900 people missing,
Mhm.
and and that hasn't hit the news yet.
Mm. Yeah.
Gosh, I have people ask me, they're like, how does that happen? How does that happen? Why would a funeral director do that? Why would they not follow through? And what I try to explain to them is kind of just the business, the behind the scenes of it. So this funeral home, more than likely, did not have their own crematory, and
No, they did not.
they were taking them to other funeral homes for the cremation. So,
Mhm.
like our funeral home, for example, we do cremations for two other funeral homes. We do the pickup, we do the cremation, and then we deliver them right back to the funeral homes that paid us to do the cremation. But they work with their own families, and I think there's some people that are confused on that funeral homes just all don't have their own crematories, but they don't. They don't. So that is what was going on here. Was this John Halford and his wife allegedly were contracting, they were going through other crematories, and I am going to bet, and I haven't heard a tell-all from these other crematories, they probably do not want to be associated with this couple at all.
They're on a gag order. They can't.
Oh, they can't. Okay, well, that makes
It's
this
not.
even more interesting. So
Mm.
my guess is that John and his wife just stopped paying, and the bill kind of kept racking up, and they're like, hey, are you going to pay us? Hey,
You nailed it.
we can't do your cremations anymore if you're not going to be paying us. So what do?
Mhm.
They go to the next funeral home. Hey, we're in need of a friend, another funeral home to do our cremations. Will you be that guy? Will you be that person for me? And so they go to the next one and they do it again, and they might pay at the beginning, and then but what kills me is it they're not paying thousands of dollars to this other funeral home to do the cremations. It might be a couple $100 because there's an agreement. $300. How did I know?
Mhm.
Because that's what we do. And so the reason, that's just our behind the scenes. We do the cremation, and it's just that's what it is. But that is what I already knew. I know it in my jellies that is what he went from one funeral home to the next. I don't know how many. It could be a lot. Maybe they're finding that out yet. And he just has all these bills racked up that he never paid. And then eventually they start having deceased people stacking up in their funeral home because they don't have anywhere to take them.
Mhm.
And so then he starts finding a place. He's got to come up with another solution. So he has nowhere he can take these people to be cremated because all the other funeral homes in town and around in the communities, they know he doesn't pay. This is a small business. People in funeral business talk, and they know that he's not paying, so they're not going to take him on. But they're also not going to look into what he's been doing because we're busy. We got enough of our own stuff going on. So that is how I believe what happened. And it's funny that you're confirming because I wanted to talk to you about this last time, and I didn't get to. And
Yeah,
when people ask me, how did that happen? That is how that happened. So when the bodies
exactly what happened.
piling up at his funeral home, he has to do something. So what does he do? This is so dumb because all he had to do was take the money from the families and pay the crematories, and this never would have happened. couple $100 per person. Getting paid a couple thousand for cremation for these families, and you're not taking the couple $100. So what I'm trying to say is this happened gradually, but then it stacked up to be a really big problem. And he got over his head. They didn't know what to do. So they took a really shitty route and they started disposing of people in places that they're finding and unearthing and discovering, which I'm sure they're doing I'm sure the FBI, I've seen enough true crime, where I'm sure they're checking his cell phone records, where he spent his time, where he frequented, because this gives me serial killer vibes, but he didn't do the murders.
Full on Dexter,
right. He just disposed of them and pocketed all the money and didn't do what he was supposed to do. I'm surprised that people got death certificates. I can't even believe they followed through with that. But if they wouldn't
They falsified those.
No, they owed money to the state too. So
yeah.
Oh gosh, why? God, I'm going to bang my head on the mic.
So on my brother's death certificate, there's a crematorium in Pueblo listed as cremating him. When the crematories were engaged for information by law enforcement, this particular crematorium, they did recover cremains from several decedents who were taken there to be cremated by return to nature. Though on my brother's death certificate, this crematorium is listed, they did not have him there. His cremains weren't there. His body was not there.
So they lied, because when you fill out the death certificate, you do have to put a crematory. Oh my gosh. But I get it. It makes sense. It makes sense to me as a funeral director for you to say that, but it's just so crappy of them to do that. Oh, no.
And now there's a lot of families that are who got their loved one back out of the 190, who ended up having to have them cremated. And now they have to get new death certificates completely redone and issued because they weren't initially cremated by the crematorium. Come to find out, there were several crematoriums that they were using, tens of thousands of dollars that they owed to these crematoriums. One of the casket places that they were using, they owed over $20,000 to. The debt was ridiculous. PPP loans during COVID, falsified information to get roughly $350,000 worth of PPP loans. Money laundering. I worked for a bank and I learned new ways to launder money. Definitely learned new ways to launder money.
Oh my gosh.
So start transferring money around between accounts and then go buy luxury vehicles and then wait a year and sell them and then go buy new luxury vehicles and you have washed that money.
So is that what they were doing with the money as they were spending it?
Vacations, houses, cars.
Oh.
There was a restaurant they went to in Vegas that they spent well over $1,000 for dinner for the two of them.
I could not live with myself. What?
And just wait till we get to the text messages because that's.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I've been in court, so could you imagine referring to someone's what happens when a body decomposes as people juice? You got people juice on me.
Oh, that's what he was texting people.
Yeah, and from him to her as he was carting bodies into the facility and dumping them in there. He was texting her, I need to take a shower as soon as I get home. I got people juice on me, and then proceeded to tell her what he wanted on his cheeseburger in the same text.
These people were they like lost their humanity. They're just
completely.
It was all about the money, and they got turned upside down and lost a piece of themselves in the process. Or maybe I just don't know how people how they could sleep at night.
There were decedents shoved in totes. There were decedents like more than one in the same body bag. There were most of them had been stripped of their clothes, their jewelry, but many of them still had their toe tags or hospital bracelets on, and that's how they were identified. And
thank God he was too lazy to remove those.
Yeah, there was a water cremation system that he had built or bought or something in the facility.
Oh no,
that had remains in it. It was evidently broken because in one of the texts he was talking about building a new machine. They were discussing different ways to just get rid of all the bodies. We got to figure out a way to get rid of all the bodies because I don't want to go to jail.
So, do you know what his aqua meter looked like?
Mm-mm.
I'm scared about that because I've found out the different types of machines that they have. This might be just between us, but I've heard that there's even a version that's essentially like a bathtub, and you put the person in the tub, and those were like the earlier, super early Aquamator. That's the best way I can say what it is. But oh no, if he's already
Yeah.
not taking care of people, he's not going to take care of the machine. He's not going to make sure it's done
Yeah.
properly.
And he was practicing taxidermy in there. He had been on Facebook Marketplace looking for another big building outside of city limits, that at least had a floor drain and a toilet and a sink in there.
Taxidermy on animals?
He, that's what he said. And that's why I was trying to say that's what the smell's coming from because I was practicing taxidermy.
Oh, yes. People on Instagram wanted to know how did it come to be that he was discovered that this was happening? And you said before we started that it was the smell?
It was the smell.
The smell from the building.
So neighbors in the surrounding area, because it was kind of in a weird locale, like there was houses around the building. So there was a gentleman that lived a few doors down that said when he would be outside doing yard work, he could smell a really abhorrent smell, just in the air. People driving down the road could smell it. So
I can't even imagine.
Somebody finally complained that there was just a really, really bad smell on that road, essentially. But the way the decedents were placed in that building and the decomposition, there was several inches of bodily fluids, bugs, maggots, you name it, on the floor that the first responders and such had to wade through just to get. And some of the doors were even blocked. They couldn't get in the doors because of all of the decedents, and they had the windows blacked out to where nobody could look in. But it was basically a bunch of like Costco shelving, like you would put in your garage. And they were like stacking them on there. But there was only one room in that whole 20 something thousand or 2,000 something square foot building that did not have decedents in it. And I believe that was a utility closet. So every room in that building had people in there.
And how many, what was the final count that they pulled out of that
190.
190. And then now we have over 900 that are missing.
Yes.
My heart just sinks. My heart sinks. I also think about the first responders and the other people that had to, there's going to be a lot of therapy needed after.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine. Even imagine.
I heard through the grapevine that the coroner is retiring after this.
Oh.
That bad.
That bad.
Some of the first responders ended up having to go to the hospital, dealt with some health issues because of the toxicity. The building is going to be demolished. The EPA had to go in and do a major cleanup just to be able to demolish the building because the decomposition had soaked through the floor, the subflooring, into the soil, through the brick, because it was a brick building, so it soaked through the bricks. It was essentially outside.
Oh my gosh, they're going to, good. I'm glad they're going to demolish the building. Honestly, nobody needs to look at that. I was going to see if there's any other question. They're kind of about the same, but I would love I would love to hear about the court. And then there's also a question here. It says, when did they first realize something wasn't right? And I think they mean,
when did we find
you as the family? When did you realize that this wasn't right, that you weren't going to be getting your brother's remains back?
Essentially, when it hit the news, that's when we found out there was a problem with them. We had just been waiting patiently. The last email we had gotten from Carrie was asking for his social, so because she would need that information for the death certificate and filing with the state. So we gave her that information. She called like the last week or about a week and a half before October started, or in September, to tell us that he had been cremated. His remains were ready. She insisted on mailing them.
Oh, she didn't want you to
and
come pick them up.
And she never told us where we could go get them. We never knew where he got cremated. My mom was like, nope, we'll come get them. Just tell us where to go. And we heard nothing back. And then, like, it was just zero.
And then you heard from the news, and then
the
FBI was calling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had to fill out that little form just to say that we were, part of it, and gave a general description of him. And he looked a little different. He had a lot of tattoos. He did have a hair lip, had some facial hair. I even told the FBI in December, if you have any decedents with facial hair and tattoos, shave the top lip. If it's got a hair lip, that's him. I was trying to give them any way. I was describing his tattoos to them, what he was wearing when he passed away.
Anyway, for them.
What they told me at the end of December was, we don't have anybody left with tattoos. Oh. So I knew that he wasn't in that 190. So at this point, we're just trying to figure out like what they did with him. We can't legally go to the jail to visit either one of them and ask them questions. So gone down the lawyer route, and that's been a fiasco, because I'm like, I'm not trying to file some huge civil suit for a lot of money or whatever. I just want to know where my brother is. I just want my brother's body so I can lay him to rest. Yes. Court-wise, so when they were both arrested, I guess he was found with, if I remember this number correctly from court, like 11.5 grams of methamphetamine.
Oh, that's where all the money went. Okay.
That's like dealer level, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
When they were arrested, they had fled Colorado, and they were arrested in Oklahoma at his father's house. And his father's a funeral director in Oklahoma. So this was like he grew up in the life, and so they were arrested, extradited back to Colorado. Were both put in jail on $2 million bonds each. And then the bonds were reduced to $100,000. He bonded out in end of January, beginning of February, somewhere in that ballpark. She just bonded out a few weeks ago.
So they're not in jail.
He bonded out, left her there. Like, he's like, good.
Yeah.
So you take care of yourself, wifey. And then she has court-ordered addiction. She has to do something court-ordered addiction. I don't know if it's like a check-in or a regular drug test or whatever it is that she's got to do. She was supposed to show up for that the other day and did not. So there is another court hearing on the 14th where she is supposed to appear to address why she was a no-show for a court-ordered addiction, something or another. I don't know if it's for drugs or alcohol or whatever the case may be, but I think she's gone.
You think
if we don't see her in court on the 14th, I'll know.
So you think that they might have decided to pick up and leave again?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, well, that's going to be interesting to see if they show up or not. I can't believe they lowered the bond from what it was to that for release.
I know.
Why?
We were in an uproar.
Why?
We were in an uproar.
That literally makes no sense.
Yeah. They've already fled once. They're already flight risks. Why would you make it easier on them?
Yeah. That's what the heck?
Yeah. It just baffles me. But like at the end of the day, I just want to know where my brother is. And I want them to go to jail for a very long time.
Do they think that is going to happen? Because I know that Colorado's they're so lax on their funeral director rules and licensure and everything. And I worry about the consequences if there will be, or if they'll just get a slap on the wrist from this.
So the fraud, theft, and money laundering, they can go away for quite some time for
Okay,
that.
those are big ones. Okay.
Those are big ones. For anything that has to actually do with the decedents and the bodies recovered and things, it's really just almost probation type.
That floors me.
Mhm.
Do you have any other updates? Has the FBI talked to you lately? Is there anything that you have left to blow my mind with other than the 900?
Because think of it when I get off with you.
It just breaks my heart for them, for those families.
Yeah. I don't really that I can think of off the top of my head. Like I said, I'll probably think of something the minute we get off of here, and then I can
That's
just
okay.
message you. But
We'll have to talk again.
Yeah, not really that I can think of. I just don't know. Like I know details about the state of the decedents in the building.
What did they tell you?
You know, there were rats and mice. Feasting. I hate to use that word.
That's what they were doing. Yep. So I'm so sorry. You know, I'm glad that your brother wasn't in there. I know it would have made finding him a lot easier. I wish he would have been, just so you would have known, but
yeah. I mean, I just feel for everybody, you know. I mean, I even kind of feel for their children. They had children.
Have you connected with any of the other families that have lost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of support group come together. I love that.
We have weekly, not huddles, but weekly just vigils get together through Zoom. I miss a lot of them because sometimes it just like my brain spaces between working and running my own household and handling everything else that I handle. I just tend to forget those. But yeah, it's a good group of people. Christina, she's the one that started the whole thing, Christina Page, and she has been a rock and a beacon for everybody. And she is basically our biggest bulldog. She doesn't miss a beat, and she's good to just go to and say, I'm losing my crap today, you know. And she'll kind of just talk you down off that ledge and bring you back to reality a little bit. But yeah, no, the families are they've been really supportive. They've been great. I guess that's the way I can put that. They've just been great.
I'm glad. If there's anything to be glad for, I'm glad that you have been able to connect with them and to be able to have that support group with each other, because you all are looking for answers, and I imagine this can feel quite lonely, and you're so worried, and you just want to find your loved one. That's it. You just want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a video the other day on TikTok of the families were waiting outside the courtroom. Did you see that? They were waiting outside the courtroom for John to come down the block, and they were running after him, just screaming at him, "Where is my son? Where is my loved one? Tell me, where are they?"
Those two ladies, the older lady with the blondish gray hair, and then there was a lady with like brown hair standing next to her. The one with the brown hair, that's Christina.
Okay,
she's the bulldog.
She's the bulldog. I can tell. She was on it. She was like, "Tell me now," and she was very to the point. Very, yes, she's a bulldog. I'm glad you have her.
Her son passed away in 2019. He was one of the first ones identified, and she had been prior to them identifying him, or prior to any of this coming to light, she had been an advocate for, um, like extra police training, things like that for shootings and things. And each one of these platforms or podiums that she would speak on, she would have her son's urn there, but it wasn't her son. And so she was
Oh,
definitely angered by that she had been traveling the country with this urn,
that
coast to
wasn't him,
coast, and it wasn't her son. It was Ashes,
because
or it was
that was one of the things we haven't talked
concrete.
about here, because what they were doing is they were putting concrete in the urns. Isn't that right? It was
Mhm.
concrete and
Yeah,
like fire at, like just having fires,
fireplace ashes.
and that's what she had.
Yeah, yeah. And when law enforcement and first responders were clearing out the building, they found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of what's called sackcrete, quickcrete, concrete,
They found it in at that funeral home.
bags of it. Yeah. So, um, so I'm, like I said, I'm waiting on a call back from the FBI. We just kind of go back and forth ever so often.
Have they found new
And
places to search? They're still
that's
searching?
that's kind of where I'm going to have a conversation with them next. Is now that they've identified, or let's just say they've identified all 190. Um, what are they going to do about the ones that were not in that building that we know you Return to Nature picked up,
Yep.
that we know were supposed to be buried or cremated, or are they going to start digging up plots? There was one of the 190 that they identified was a soldier that had passed away, and he had had a full military burial at one of the veteran cemeteries in Colorado Springs, and but they found his body in the
Oh
funeral home.
no.
So they had to go to the veteran cemetery, exhume the body, and it was a female in the coffin.
Oh no. I had not heard about that.
So yeah, like I said, I got things that you're not going to hear
No,
on
you got a lot. You got
TV.
all the you got everything.
Yeah, things have progressed quite dramatically since we last spoke. So
I'm glad that we got to reconnect so you could let me
mhm,
know these updates, because I think it's important that we talk about this case. If there's ever going to be any real change in Colorado for stricter licensing, I mean, every other state
mhm,
has better rules and regulations,
mhm,
and Colorado needs some help. And not to say, I want to very clearly state that not all funeral directors in Colorado are bad. They are not. There are people that do this job and they do it wonderfully, and they do
mhm,
it because they want to help other people. But unfortunately, Colorado has been in the news over and over and over
mhm.
because funeral directors are not doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, they've busted two other ones since
Yes.
this came to light.
I heard
So the
about
one
that.
in the Fort Collins area where they found somebody that was in the back of a hearse parked in front of somebody's house that had been there for 2 years, and then found 30 other sets of cremains in his house. And he had been doing the same thing, had been giving back fake remains. So,
No, I think this is important that we talk about this. We talk about the other
mm,
cases because it can help bring change, which I
mhm.
desperately think that Colorado needs.
Yeah, and I have some legislative updates. I just haven't read through them yet, but I will forward it all over to your email if you want. So you have those
Yeah, I would love
updates to
that.
read through, because it involves everything that, like when we were initially signing the petition. And by the way, um, uh, we got a lot more signatures after you did the first meeting
Did
with me, so that was
you?
great.
Okay.
So it did go to legislature. It did go straight up the chain. I just need to read through and see if what has been passed or hasn't passed, or whatnot. So
I'll have to share that link again. We'll have to share the link again and get more signatures.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for talking to me, for sharing this with me. Um, I, you've made me feel special that you are that you are trusting me with this, that you are willing to share this with me. So I really just want to say thank you for being so brave to do so, because it takes a lot to share about this. People on the internet can be mean when we talk about this, because they judge the families for going and choosing this funeral home. And I think that this interview is really important to have together to show that there were no red flags. There was nothing that said, don't pick this funeral home. They came across as a loving couple who were taking care of people. The reviews were good. I mean, everything was aligning that this was an okay establishment to use. And unfortunately, if only we could have seen behind closed doors sooner. So if you're watching this, please do not blame the families. They could not have known. There was nothing that they could have done to make this different. And instead, let's just say some prayers and hope that the FBI is able to, let's bring them home. That we need to, or some sort of a deal with this guy so that he does the right thing and tells them where they are buried or where he is keeping them. And I have faith that they're going to find your brother. I do. I said that last time, and I'm going to say it again, because this guy really didn't put much effort into things, right? He did what was easy. So if he's going to continue to do that pattern and do something that's easy, I have faith, and I really hope that the FBI is going to find that place, find that location, and then find your brother. And not only find your brother, but also give the other families closure and help find their loved ones too.
Exactly. Yes, I couldn't have said it better.
So I just want to tell you that I love you, and I would hug you. I'd virtually hug you if I could hug you. And I'm sending you so much love. I've been thinking of you. I've been praying for you, and keep me posted and let me know. Let me know when they find him.
I will for sure.
And give your mom a hug for me too.
I will.